Moin everyone and welcome to the first episode of this E24 Restoration Series. I'm excited to take you along the journey of bringing back this beautiful BMW back on the road again. The car in front of you is an original 1982 E24 635 CSI facelift featuring the iconic M30 engine and a manual transmission. With this 3.5 liter inline-six producing 218 horsepower and 315 Nm of torque, this car is one of the fastest Grand Tours of the 80s. We have 250,000 kilometers on the clock, even though the 6 Series has already been decommissioned in 1998, which adds up to a staggering 26 years off the road. In contrast, the Shark has only lived for 16 years in its natural habitat, the roads of southern Germany. The extended period without registration explains why there's only one previous owner in the papers, an absolute rarity. When I stumbled upon the E24 in an online ad, I knew immediately that I had to check it out. I took a day off and hit the Autobahn straight away. The car was offered as an unfinished restoration. The second owner started the restoration shortly after the decommissioning. All the accessories and trim pieces have been removed and the car has been repainted. However, for some reason the restoration was left incomplete and the car sat repainted for a prolonged period. During my visit, the current owner was unable to start the engine, leaving me with little knowledge about its condition. Of course I bought it anyway, because it makes a perfect first patient for this channel. We will find out if that was a wise decision or not. Unfortunately, some important parts got lost over the years, including the front and rear windscreen, but luckily it didn't rain on my way home. In today's episode, our focus is to service the engine and to troubleshoot the starting issue, so we get this amazing machine up and running again. Let's get the car into the workshop and do a quick walk around first. And there it is, one of the most, if not the most, beautiful BMW ever made. The overall body is in really good condition. The rust must have been removed before the painting. For example, E24s tend to rust here around the front fender. There's a bracket behind and the rust starts to eat through from the inside and out. Also typical for E24s is rust in the rear fender arches. Nearly every E24 has a problem here. I spotted some signs of welding, so these fender arches have been replaced before the painting, which is really good. This part below the rear taillights is also known to rust, but these ones are in perfect condition and have not been welded, so it was just perfect from the beginning. And also the taillights are looking mint. The chrome around the taillights starts to corrode and get hazy, but these are absolutely perfect and shiny. On the side we are missing two trim pieces, the upper one and the lower one. They are not inside the car, so they are really missing and I have to get a replacement. In the front we have these Gullydeckel wheels or manhole covers in English. These have TRX tires on them, which are stupidly expensive. Also we have Alpina style rims in 14-inch in the rear, so mismatched rims. These two, we have to get rid of them and look for a proper replacement. The chrome corners in the front are in really good condition. These tend to rust from the inside and then you can see little rust bubbles on the outside. Once you see the bubbles, they are done. Below that we have the 635 CSI spoiler, missing the fog lights. They are not in the car, so I have to get a replacement. The headlights are in okay condition. You can see they are really foggy and hazy. There's some grimy stuff inside, so we definitely have to take them apart and clean them from the inside. And yeah, maybe refurbish them. There's a chrome coating on the inside and I hope it's not destroyed. Now we come to the trim pieces. The front chrome trim is missing. The rear one is mounted but damaged. Someone used the wrong screws to hold the rain guards, which are then holding the trim pieces. And yeah, this is the result. This trim piece can't be repaired, it's for the bin. and they are stupid expensive. You can't get them new and no one offers them used. So yeah, we have to deal with that. These lower trim pieces are in Shadowline. Fortunately, I found the correct ones in chrome on the rear seat, together with a lot of other trim pieces, for example the upper front ones. And now talking about the elephant in the room, we have no front and rear windshield. Also the seals are missing and the trim pieces around the windshields are missing, so I have to get my hands on some used ones. The inside of the car is not assembled but complete as far as I could see. We have a beige interior with black seats, and I believe the seats have been re-dyed in black. Also, that must have been some time ago, because you can see here that the dye is coming off and you can see the beige color getting through again. Also, the seat is a little bit rough here around the corner, but that is fixable. The check control module is completely missing, so I have to get a replacement. Also the radio is missing, but we have the board computer, which is nice. And this is the mileage of 250,000 kilometers or 155,000 miles. That's it for the interior. Let's take a quick look under the hood. To open the hood, I actually have to use this plastic lever because the hood is not adjusted properly. And it doesn't stay open, for sure. We will use our little plastic lever to hold the hood in place. Perfect. And here we have the patient for today, the M30 engine. As I stated before, we were not able to start it during my visit, so that's our task for today. Also, you can see that the engine bay is really dirty and looks neglected. This just shows how long this car has been sitting somewhere and waiting to be revived. I want this engine bay to match the outside appearance of the car. That means we have to get rid of all these painted engine parts. We have to bring them back into their original color. And also this chrome air filter housing has to be repainted in the original color, which is probably something like satin black. The biggest downside for me on this car is that the original color was BMW Kastanienrot Metallic, which is obviously not the color. The car has been painted. Here you can see the 3.5 stamped into the manifold. Actually, the engine has a displacement of 3.4 liters, but BMW liked to round up. Yeah, there is really a lot of dust here. There's no locking mechanism for the trunk, so I have to use my finger. The trunk is full of interior parts and all other bits and pieces. But for now, we will not take a look at it and focus on the engine. Before I'm trying to start the engine for the first time, I want to give it some well-needed love. I don't know when the last service has taken place, maybe several years ago, maybe even decades. So we will just do an oil change the filters and change the spark plugs. For the spark plugs we use OE Bosch W8DC, which come in these really cool retro packages. Before we are doing the oil change, I want to take a quick look underneath the valve cover. I will show you the reason once we have it disassembled. We have to remove the air filter housing, the mass airflow sensor and this intake tube to get to the valve cover. remove the intake hose. Loose the brackets that hold the intake. Remove the ignition cables. And now we have access to the 8 nuts and the 1 bolt that hold the valve cover. And now we can remove the cover. Overall, not looking too bad under valve cover. You can see some oil deposits. Probably someone didn't do the oil changes in time, so you will get these black residue. The reason why I wanted to take a look underneath are these 2 banjo bolts. They are holding this oil feeder line or feeder tube, which are feeding oil to the camshaft. These rocker arms are running on the camshaft, and when the banjo bolts get loose, the distribution of the oil is not guaranteed anymore and the rocker arms are damaging the camshaft. Once I'm here, I'm going to check if the cams have already been damaged. Actually, you can see a little bit of wear on this cam. Nothing too bad, you can barely feel it, but we have to investigate why it happened. You can see here we have a lot of oil residue, and maybe the little hole in the tube is clogged, so I will check that. So we remove the banjo bolts. Don't forget the washers. And now turn it and push it back. When it came out here, just pull it gently forward. And here we have the feeder tube. These are the holes I was talking about. We will just give it a quick clean and then put it back in the engine. Brake cleaner. Before I'm installing it, I make sure that the brake cleaner is completely vanished. You can also play it as a flute. And Uno reverse on the install. Don't forget the washers, the banjo bolts, also make sure you're always using clean tools when working inside the engine. Good and tight. Next, the valve cover. we are replacing the gasket once we are doing the big service. Don't forget the ground cable. Nach fest kommt ab, which translates to after tight, it breaks off. And now everything back in again. And now it's finally time for the oil change. For that we have to lift the car up. We are leaking oil from the timing chain cover. Over there in the corner they are meeting 4 surfaces and it's nearly impossible to get it sealed. Also the transmission leaks oil. And I also spotted some rust on this factory plug. We have to address that. Also someone tried his best in welding the fold, but it looks horrible, so we have to address that also. 17 nut. Oh, kurwa. Oh, that looks really nasty. The oil filter lives next to the door to Narnia. And look at that, original BMW part. And that is why we are doing the oil change. It's completely black. The new filter, new rubber seal, lube it up with a little bit of oil. New washer. Put the filter back in. New washer on the screw. About 6 liters of engine oil. Actually, for your information, I'm recording this in 2 languages, in English and in German. So I'm doing everything twice. So if you notice some weird cuts, that's probably the reason why. Let's check the oil level. Yep, it's full. To change the spark plugs, I removed all the intake stuff again. And now lastly, let's quickly change the air filter. In with the new. Connect the battery. This ground strap is broken, so let's replace it. Before I'm turning the key and giving it a shot, I'm going to pull the fuel pump relay, so the engine does not start immediately and can build up oil pressure to loop up all the bearings. In case you are not sure which one is the fuel pump relay, it's the one with the green and violet wires coming out of the socket. And the one next to it is the ECU relay. Really convenient. Now I put the relay back in and try to start the engine. Another try. Nothing. Well, that was expected, but I was hoping for wonders. There are no signs of the engine wanting to start, so we have to investigate. Usually when I have an engine that doesn't want to start, I first check for the fuel and for the spark. These two are the basic needs for the engine, so let's check them first. To check if the fuel pump is working, you can bridge the fuel pump relay. For that, you have to bridge pin 30 and pin 37, which is this one. You can hear the pump running, and also you can hear the fuel flowing through the fuel rail. So we have at least a running pump. To check if we have a spark, I'm using a spark plug tester. I've installed it instead of the ignition cable coming from the coil to the distributor cap. And there is none. Okay, there's no spark, so let's check the coil. Okay, let's check if we have 12 volts at pin 15 on the coil when turning the key. Also, I have a little control lamp over there. "12 volts are there and the lamp is on." So at this point usually I would measure the resistance of the coil to check if it's any good, but this one is basically new, so I just checked the parts number and it's the correct one. If you want to check your coil, you can do that. Just get a multimeter and measure the resistance between pin 15, which is this one, and pin 1. It should be 0.5 ohm. And also you can measure the resistance between pin 15 and pin 4, which should be 6 ohm, kilo ohm, sorry. It's labeled which pin is which. In the next step I probably would check if the ground on pin 1 is switched on and off by the ECU, which creates the spark. But let me show you something. This thing right here is not original on these cars. And I also found lots of wires. Also, these here are definitely not original. Also this one and these. So we probably have an alarming system here which is not working anymore, and though interrupting the starting process, maybe interrupting the ECU. Sometimes they interrupt the starter, but in this case you saw it works. So this alarming system is probably the reason why we are not starting. Also, this is what I found underneath the steering wheel. We have lots of wires and also these voltage stealers, which are definitely not original. There's another one. I just found the mothership, the reason of all evil. This is probably the control unit of the alarming system. I could possibly try to get it to work, but I just want to throw it out. So I'm just going to remove all this stuff, rewire everything like it was from the factory, and then I'm trying to start it again. And this is all of the fuckery out. We have the horn, the control unit, some relays and lots of cables and lots of these voltage stealers. I rewired all the cables that have been cut. So there's only one thing to do now, and this is trying to start it again. Reconnect the battery and go for it. Fuck! What do you need? Okay, I thought we have found the problem, but apparently we have not, so let's continue. Next up I want to check the two engine pickups. This engine has two pickups, which are located, or the connectors are located right here. Actually, these two sensors are completely the same, but one of them measures the engine speed and the other one is measuring a reference mark. If only one of the sensors fails, the ECU is not able to calculate the timing for the fuel injection and for the spark, and as a result, we have neither spark or fuel injection. So these are a hot candidate for our missing spark. We have to measure the resistance between these two pins. The third one is the shield to protect the signal. So we are expecting infinite resistance on that. I can show you. Infinite. And between these two, we are expecting 960 ohms plus minus 10%. We have 842 ohm, which is on the lower end, maybe out of spec. And well, this is infinite resistance, which means the sensor is short. Just to see it, there's nothing. Yeah, that means we have to change at least this one, maybe even both. Did I mention that I miss my lift? Well, I I miss my lift. Well, these are the two sensors. First we have to remove this protective shield, which are held by two inaccessible screws. Yeah. And there it is, 3 screws. Here you can see the sensors sitting offset on the flywheel. One is counting the teeth and one is just a marker. The rear one is our patient. That was easy as well. And here they are. This one, the working one, is actually a original BMW part, which you will not see, but just trust me. And it feels pretty new. The cable isn't stiff at all. This one, the not working one, is a Bosch sensor. The cable is really stiff. Maybe it's really old. Maybe the quality is not as good. And also, this part number from Bosch is stated as an alternative for the original sensor, but the resistance is stated with 860 ohm, which is on the lower end of the tolerances from the factory, so we will go with OE ones. I just got a new engine speed sensor, original BMW part. This is the part number if you need it. It was delivered within just 1 day. The new sensor has a resistance of 870 ohm, which is within spec. I will mark one sensor so I will be able to differentiate them. Sensors back in. Reinstall the protective plate. I just installed the spark plug tester again and pulled the fuel pump relay, so let's give it another try and see if we have spark. Oh yes! Oh yes, baby! Okay, so let's quickly put everything back together and give it another try. Fuel pump relay back in place. Okay, so let's try it. Please start. Yes! Oh! Yes! We have oil pressure, okay. Okay, it runs. Yes. Yes. And it ran really smooth until it didn't anymore, but until this point it was perfect. Maybe we have a fuel starvation, but fuck yes. Okay, so next I want to check how quickly the oil lamp disappears to see if we have instant oil pressure. Perfect, nearly immediately vanished. Now it's time for a little test drive, so let's get him down. Power steering works. Dann mal los. Here we go. The lights are working. The dash light is not working, but with that we have our first test drive. It's a little bit windy. And with that successful first test drive, I think we can call it mission completed. In the next episode we are going to install all the accessory trim pieces and the windshield so we can transfer the car to my workshop. Thank you very much for staying until the very end of this video, and see you next time.